Paul, and today I want to show a little demonstration about how to implement a kind of tilting effect in the UI using Unity. So let's have a look at that. So let's put a little image onto the screen. Little UI image, he says. Can't find image. Image, right. Let's go into 2D mode. Let's have a look at this image. Okay, and let's put this little sprite in here. And let's give it some room. I think that looks good. I think maybe a bit longer. Yeah, about there. So what I want to do is be able to click on this and for the image to tilt based on how the user's, or where the user has clicked on it. So how to go about doing that? So I guess the first way would probably use animation. So we can come in here and go to our animation window. Animation. Okay, let's just, I'll just dock that here. And as it says, we want to create an animation. And so we can come in here, create a new folder. Animations and animations. And we'll call it tilt. Okay, so what do we want to do? So we want to tilt. So let's go to our rotation, put the chord on, go to our rotation, add a key for that, and then move along a little bit, say up to about there. And so we want to rotate around the Y to start with, I believe. So that is, which way is which? Let's put a tilting tool on. So that, can't really see what I'm doing. So let's come off 2D. Okay, I think that's the front. So we want to tilt that way, and we click. So let's just say -30. Okay, and then we want to hold that for few, I would say, put that about there. And then we want to go back, so we can put that probably roughly about there. Let's go back to 2D. Okay, yeah, I think that's about right. So that's cool. And then we can go to our animation controller, which should be somewhere on here. And we can create an empty state because I don't want it doing this all the time. So we just call this one empty. Make this the default state. Set as default. Add a parameter. Oops, there's a layer. Parameter. Trigger. Is clicked. Okay. Oops, and now I'm on a different layer. Okay. And make a transition. So I could do it from any state. I'll just do it from here. Make transition. We can say that it is clicked and we don't want an exit. Make transition back. We do want to play the whole animation. So that should be about it. So isClicked is the name of it. So now we need a script. So let's come in here, scripts, create a C# script, call it tilting anim. Let's put it on the image. Okay, hopefully that's done it. Tilting anim, yep, okay. So we just wait for that. Right, isClicked. So go to the animator, get animator, get hash. Let's get hash. Animator. Okay, where is get hash gone? String to hash. String to hash. isClicked. isClicked hash. So all we're doing here is we're getting the shortcut to the parameter. So we don't have to use strings, so it's a lot more efficient. We don't need to do it for this demo really, but you know, if we're going to do it properly, let's do it. So when we're clicked, so now we need to figure out how to do the on mouse down. Now, I've had so much trouble with on mouse down. I prefer to use the I pointer click handler. So I think we'll do that one. Implement that. Don't need there. Underneath that, I think. So when we get a click, we should see some event data. So let's just make sure that that is working first. Print, actually, let's just do that. Let's just run that. Make sure that we are actually running. We're trying to read an input class. Am I really? What's all this? So I'm using the newish Unity. So I've just created this scene, so I need to tell it to use a new system. Okay. Hopefully that's sorted that out. And am I running? Oh, yeah. I'm getting the pointer clicks. That's good. That is good. Just go to the game mode. And I don't really want this right smack in the middle down the bottom there. So I will just come here and center. That's a bit better. Okay. Right, so now I've sorted that out. Let's go and implement our mouse click. So back into our demo code. We want to get hold of the animation engine. So the animator equals get component animator. And just for completeness, requires component type of animator. So that makes sure that we have one of those. And now we've got a field with cached that as well. So on the pointer click, what we can do is then we can do animator set trigger, and we've got the ID, so we can just do that. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, so that's a tilt behavior, but it's a little quite what I want it to do, because as I'm clicking anywhere on here, the thing is tilting, just playing the same tilt animation. So that's not really what I want. I want to be able to click over here and for it to tilt to the left or tilt up, and it's really not doing that. So if we just scale in, you see that it's always just tilting to the right. We know that because that's how we coded our animation. So that presents a problem, because if you go to our animation, what exactly is happening here? So we can see that on our keyframes, we start here and our image rotations are 0, and we move to the next set of keyframes and we got our -30, and we're not rotating around the X. Now it's actually quite difficult to programmatically come in here and adjust these animations on the fly. And I think now with the later versions of Unity, they are maybe pre-compiled, I think. So it's even harder to try and do that kind of adjustment. You used to be able to with the legacy code, but no longer. It's pretty tricky to do this, I believe. So how else do we do this? So we need another animation mechanism. So let's just come in here and we'll take the script off. And we'll use a different library. Now, let's go to Package Manager. And I should be able to go to My Assets, I believe. And let's see if I have the Tween libraries. No. All packages. I cannot find the Tween libraries. That's good. Don't think it's a preview. Okay, let's try the asset store. Wait for the asset store. Right, Tween. Do Tween. Oops, I don't want the pro version. There. Purchased. Curious. Okay. So let's import this library here. Importing away. Now what this gives us is a programmatic control over tweening, and really what tweening means is moving between 2 points over a period of time. Okay, so I'll just follow the instructions here. Don't want to set up, okay. Let's just do what it tells me to do. Waiting. Okay, apply. Okay, I'm in. Right, back to the scene. So I need a new script because the tweening libraries are going to use programmatic control over animations. So let's create a new script. Tilt tween. Let's put that on the image. Don't think that happened. Yep, okay. We can also get rid of the animator now. Don't need that. Uh-oh. Not liking the looks of that. No. Sometimes it's Visual Studio. Phew. Okay, reload. I think I'll maybe save the scene. Right. Okay, so we're into the using the tweening. Right, so tweening. Okay, so we want to use the same mouse behavior. So we want our eye pointer. What was it called? Eye pointer click handler. That's the one. Don't have a reference to that. Let's grab that. Implement the interface. Right, now the event data that's coming in is actually supplying some interesting information. So we've got a lot of things like the actual raycast that's pointed, but the most interesting thing is the position, because that's going to tell us exactly where we're clicking. Now, in a very kind of what we call in the UK a Blue Peter style, I'm going to go over and grab a function I've previously written and bring it in, and I'll explain it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a vector position. Position in, we'll call it a tile. That's going to equal that, the data from our pointer event data. So if we go over that, so our sort of cursor position within this rectangle, we're going to get hold of the component rectangle that we're in. And we could actually, to be honest, it's probably better if we do that in the start. So let's do that now. And in fact, it is just, I think we'll find that this is just transform as rect transform. So we can just make that a little bit easier on ourselves to think about. Yeah, so I don't think I need that code there, thinking about it. We'll see. And let's call that click position. Let's get, oh, hang on. That's the event data. So we got our click position, and we call this rect transform utility. Now this is a Unity transform utility, and it's going to take our screen position, and it's going to create, figure out where the mouse position is within this rectangle. If it isn't, then we're just going to, is it inside that rectangle? We're just going to return -1, -1. If it is, then we get the position from our result from this. And then because it's based on the transform position, and we want it more relative to inside of the rectangle, we have to just do this little calculation here to create an offset. So now this position that we're getting back, this XY position, will be from 0 to the length of the rectangle in both X and Y coordinates. So that's good news. So then we can just say if position in tile.x is greater than -1, so we know that we've got some kind of valuable result from here, then we know we can play our animation. Now the animations come from the Tween library, and the Tween library has additional mechanisms that are extensions that are attached to things like transforms. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a coroutine, and I'm going to say tilt. Oops, tilt. So you can make that an enumerator. we can do our transform that we're in, do rotate. And we're going to rotate the vector. So let's just do a new, for now, just do a new vector 3. And we want to rotate around the same rotation that we had before. So it was 30, minus 30, I think. Minus 30, 0. And the duration, we can just hard code for now, call it, say, 0.8 of a second. And the rotation mode, we want to be local. Okay, so we do that rotation. And, well, we can just play that rotation. I think that's probably about it. And what we can do is we can yield return and return. We can use a tween method here, wait for completion. Okay, now let's see if this works. Okay, it's a bit slower. And you notice it doesn't go back. So it's doing the tween, but it's not actually coming back. Unfortunately, the tween library has a kind of reverse mechanism. So we can come back in here and we say we wait for completion. That's completed. That's great. So then we can do tween dot rewind, smooth rewind. Right, so now it's going to go back to its original position, except it won't. So let's have a look at this. So we click and nothing happens. So what's going on there? So what we need to do here really is we need to set this up as a member. Okay, so just set it up. And then we have to do a, I think it's kill, set auto kill to false. So what this means is typically by default, when the tween runs, it's going to wait for completion, and on completion, it's also going to kill the tween off. So by the time we get to the smooth rewind, it's basically outside of the tween engine, no longer exists. So the smooth rewind doesn't happen. So now we've done the set auto kill false. And let's just say what the false means. Let's just put that in there, auto kill on completion. So auto kill on completion is false. So when it completes, we're not going to kill it off. And we're going to store it. We're going to keep reusing it. So we're not that interested in the kill. And strictly speaking, we could do something like on disable if tween doesn't equal null, then tween dot kill. So just tidy up after ourselves. Right, so now we've got this in there. Does this work now? Let's have another look. Yeah, it goes back. So that's good. So now we need to do a little bit more configuration work. So what have we got? We've got a speed. So that's going to be a float duration. And so that's 0.8. What else have we got? Rotation. Yeah, we could do that. Float. Max rotation. So we've got that nicely configured. We can come in here now and do max rotation and duration. So we can play with those now, so that's good. Right, so coming back to our original problem in that we didn't have enough control over our animation about where exactly the user is clicked. So now we've got a mechanism that allows us to dynamically explain to the animation engine what kind of rotation we want. We've got a mechanism that we hope finds the correct position inside of the rectangle based on the mouse click. So we should be able to put all these together and make something useful. So let's pass in the position. Okay, so that goes red, and we can use a little trick here to add parameter. So it adds it straight into our function, makes it available. Okay, so this is where it starts to get a little bit more kind of intriguing. So what we want to do is, I think I'm going to steal some code. Let's just steal a bit of code and I'll explain it. Right, okay, so what we want to do is we've got our button rectangle. And we want to find midpoint of that rectangle. So now we're in a position inside of the rectangle. Now the delta y, so the position that we are in our mouse position, and the difference between that and the middle. So what that means is we've got a position above the middle and a position below the middle. So now we can kind of work out whether we want to tilt, which direction we want to tilt the thing in. Not only do we know which direction we want to tilt from that, but because we got the delta, we can work out how far away from the middle to the edge that we are. So this percentage y here, it takes that delta and divides it by the midpoint. And that gives us a percentage between 0 and 1 about how close you are to the center, to the edge. So the nearer to the edge you are, the nearer to 1 you are, and the nearer to the middle you are, the nearer to 0 you are. So that gives us a kind of strength of tilt. So we have that now. So that is moving around y, and that's a tilt around that's moving in the y coordinate direction, which means there's a tilt around x. So this percentage y we've now got, we can add that in here. So we can times that by our max rotation as well. So we're going to rotate 30 at 100% and then nothing in the middle. So you won't see any rotation. That's the plan. So let's see if that works. So we've got our position that way. Now we've got a sort of tilt that way. So let's have a little check to see what's actually happening here. So we go into 3D. Let's get a bit nearer. Let's have a look what's going on. Okay, so that's the tilt around the Y. And now you can see we're tilting in the X. Not much in the X, hardly at all in the X there. Still just tilting to the right. Tilting quite significantly. Whoa, back in the X. And then we're tilting down. So it looks like that's kind of working. So let's apply the same rules around the Y coordinate. So let's go back to our code, and now basically this is going to be the same code for the X coordinate. So again, I'll just lift that from some pre-prepared code. Now this code has a slight subtlety to it in that we have a -1 here, and that's just because the way the tilt's going to work is we want to, because I'm doing the tile X minus the midpoint here, it's going to be basically in the wrong direction. So we need to multiply it by -1 to sort of correct that adjustment. So now we've got the percentage X, we can add that to the rotation here. So what we should have now is we won't be constantly always moving that in that huge Y movement. So let's just run that up again. So I'll go to the edge, so it still should be quite a big movement there. But if I move to more towards the middle, it's far subtler. So if we really bump this up, make it kind of maybe 1 second, you can see that it really tilts around that angle, and then we can tilt up, tilt down, tilt to the left, and then anywhere in between, so we get a kind of blending of the two. So yeah, that's how you can create a nice kind of tilting effect. You can add additional code to this. So the one thing I'll show you, might not be immediately obvious, is if I click on this now, I can click again. And we can keep on tilting it. And when it goes back to rewind, it only rewinds back to the previous animation because it's never had a chance to rewind to the original one. So you're stuck in this kind of skewed position. So we need to protect ourselves from that. And what we can do is we can just come in here and say, when we do our on pointer click, in fact, we don't even need to do any of this. We can just say if, let's call it is tilt, can't type, is tilting. So it gives ourselves a nice little protective Boolean guard here. So it will always default to false when it starts. And then after we do all our tilting, we can set that to false. Now there's a problem with this. Problem is, well, I'll show you what the problem is. So let's run that again. Okay, so click, 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 still the same problem. So the issue is that the smooth rewind is a kind of asynchronous call. So it's going to tell the tweening engine to start doing it. But this isn't going to block, so it's going to come straight into here and set it to false. So we're going to start to rewind and then set it to false, and the next click comes in, and then we're going to start rotating again. So is tilting is ineffective here. But what we can do is in the smooth rewind, we can say, I believe, actually smooth rewind is just a method. So what we want to do is set the tween on rewind. So this is the callback. And then we can put our trigger, our guard to false. There. So on rewind, which is, I did talk to the author about this, and both agreed it's probably not the best worded mechanism here, but on rewind doesn't mean as soon as we start to rewind, it actually means on rewound. So it's kind of on after rewind. So this only fires after the smooth rewind is finished. So hopefully now that gets us into a position where we should be well guarded. So let's run this up. So click, 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 click. No, it's still doing it. It is still doing it. Oh dear. If it's tilting, hang on, I've not set it to true anywhere. Wah, wah. Let's put it in there. So that was Windows V, by the way, if you don't know about that. That brings up Clipboard Manager. I got a slight fault in my keyboard. It keeps blanking out my clipboard. So I can go and find the one it just blanked out. Okay, so that's should now work, I hope. Back into here. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so that pretty much covers it. The only thing I would say that you could do, and this is a bit of ugly code, which I'll just grab from over here. Because this is really ugly code. Right. Okay, so what I'm doing here, and we'll put this in a little function. And we'll call this what it is that it's doing. Adjust for minimum tilt. I don't like refs particularly, but okay, let's just go with it. That's fine. So what we're doing here is we're saying if the percentage of the movement, so i.e. we're moving towards the left, then what we want to make sure of is that we've got some kind of tilt. So if it's only a tiny fraction, tiny percentage that we're moving, and we're moving to the left, then we're just going to pick a number between 0.1 and the percentage. And because it's moving to the left, we do a min of minus. If we were moving to the right, then we can just do a max on 0.1. So that's why this code is a bit ugly. I haven't figured out a nicer way of doing this yet, apart from just using ifs. And then you do the same for the y. And this way, when you click kind of dead center, you'll at least get some kind of tilt. So let's just try that out. So click right in the middle and you get some kind of tilt. Only tiny, and you can adjust that if you wanted to. Make it a bit more prominent. So if you come in here and we could say, change this minimum. In fact, let's put it in as a field. Why not? Float minimum rotation. And we can make it 0.3, 30%. And then just be careful to use that minus sign. So you want -1 times that. Oops, going to a static. Right, okay, and same again for the y. So let's run that up. So you get a bit more of a prominent rotation there. And we can adjust that, whatever default that you want to do, maybe make it wobble instead. There's lots of things you can do with the tweening. So I think that's about it. So hopefully you can see that with a relatively simple script, we can create a tilting button effect that tilts with the direction that you want, i.e. in this case, where the user's clicking or touching. So I hope you found that interesting. Okay, thanks.